hospital lights were too bright for this time of night. They always were. They made everything feel colder and more serious than it already was. The long hallway smelled of medicine and cleaning liquid, a smell that stayed in the nose and did not leave easily. People walked fast, their footsteps echoing on the shiny floor. Some faces looked tired, some worried, and some empty. Like they had already cried all their tears. A single father sat on one of the hard chairs near the waiting area. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. His back hurt from standing all day at work, and his eyes burned from lack of sleep. He had come straight from his job, still wearing his worn shoes and simple clothes. He had not even gone home to rest. Life did not give him that choice anymore. He had learned to live on very little. Time, money, and energy were always short. Every day felt like a race he could never win, only survive. His thoughts were always about bills, school fees, food, and how to stay strong for his child. He rarely thought about himself. There was no space for that. That night, he was at the hospital because of a small checkup for his child. Nothing serious, the doctor had said, but even small things felt big when you were alone. While waiting, he checked the clock again and again. The minutes moved slowly, like they were tired too. Around him, people came and went. A nurse called out names. A man argued quietly on the phone. Somewhere far down the hallway, a baby cried. The father tried not to listen too closely. Hospitals always carried stories. Most of them were heavy. That was when he noticed her. She sat a few chairs away, near the wall, her feet not even touching the floor. She was small. Too small to be alone in a place like this. She wore a thin hospital gown and held her arms close to her body as if trying to keep herself together. Her hair was messy and her face looked pale under the bright lights. At first he thought her parents might be nearby. Maybe they had stepped out for a moment. That happened often. But as time passed, no one came back for her. Nurses walked past, busy and focused. Some glanced at her, but no one stopped. The girl stared at the floor. She did not play with a phone. She did not cry. She just sat there, very still, like she had learned not to expect anything. The father felt something tight in his chest. He tried to ignore it. He told himself it was not his place. He had enough problems of his own. Getting involved usually meant more pain, more responsibility, and more things he could not fix. He looked away and rubbed his face with his hands. But every few seconds, his eyes went back to her. She reminded him of someone he loved more than anything in the world. The same small shoulders, the same quiet way of sitting when scared or tired. He remembered nights when his own child had been sick, how helpless he had felt. Wishing someone would just say everything would be okay. He checked his pocket. Inside was a small sandwich wrapped in paper and a bottle of water. He had packed it in a hurry before leaving work. He had planned to eat it later, maybe on the bus ride home. His stomach growled, reminding him he had skipped dinner. He looked at the girl again. She shifted slightly in her seat and pulled, her gown tighter around herself. Her eyes moved to the vending machine at the end of the hallway, then back to the floor. It was a small movement, but he noticed it. He sighed quietly. Sometimes life does not give you a loud reason to act. Sometimes it is just a soft pull in the heart that refuses to be ignored. Slowly, he stood up. His legs felt stiff, but he walked toward her anyway. Each step felt heavier than it should have. He worried he might scare her, or that she would tell him to go away. He worried someone would misunderstand his intentions. In places like hospitals, people were careful. And for good reason. He stopped a short distance from her and spoke gently. "Are you okay?" His voice was low and calm, the way he used to speak when comforting his own child. The girl looked up, surprised. Her eyes were large and tired. For a moment she did not answer. She studied his face, as if trying to decide if he was safe. "I'm fine," she said quietly. It was the kind of answer people gave when they did not want to talk. He nodded. "That's good." An awkward silence followed. He did not want to push. He reached into his pocket and held out the bottle of water. "I have extra," he said. "If you're thirsty," she looked at the bottle, then at him. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the chair. After a moment, she nodded slightly and took it. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled just a little. "You're welcome." She drank slowly, like she was trying to make it last. He noticed how careful she was, how polite. It made his chest ache even more. He sat down in the chair next to her, leaving space between them. He did not want to make her uncomfortable. "Have you been waiting long?" he asked. She nodded. "Since morning?" "It's a long time," he said. She shrugged. "I'm used to it." Those words stayed with him. No child should ever be used to waiting alone in a hospital. He handed her the sandwich. "You should eat something." She hesitated again. "I don't want to take your food." "It's okay," he said quickly. "I can get more later." That was not true, but he said it anyway. After a moment, she accepted it. She took small bites, careful not to make a mess. He watched her quietly, making sure she was okay. "Where's your family?" he asked softly. Her chewing slowed. She looked away. "I don't know," she said. The way she said it was flat. Like the answer had stopped hurting because it had hurt for too long. He did not ask more. Some questions did not need answers right away. They sat together in silence, surrounded by the sounds of the hospital. For the first time that night, the waiting did not feel so heavy. A nurse called out from across the room. The father stood up. "That's for us," he said. The girl looked up, a hint of fear in her eyes. "You're leaving?" He nodded. "Just for a bit." He paused, then added, "I'll come back if I can." She did not smile, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Okay," she said. As he walked away, he felt something strange. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. But he knew one thing for sure. He would not forget her. And even though he did not realize it yet, that small moment, just a bottle of water, a sandwich, and a few kind words had already started something much bigger than both of them. The next day, the father could not stop thinking about the girl in the hospital. Her small figure, the way she held herself, the quiet sadness in her eyes, they stayed in his mind like a song that would not end. He had returned home, tired and worn, but sleep did not come easily. His child was already asleep, peaceful, and unaware of how much the father carried alone. He sat quietly in the living room, staring at the dim light. Thinking about what he could do, he remembered how small gestures could sometimes make a difference. He had lived long enough to see it. Even a smile, a few words, or offering something as simple as water could change the mood of a person who felt invisible. And he could not stop thinking that maybe the girl needed that more than anyone else had noticed. The father decided to return to the hospital. He told himself it would be just for a short while, just to check on her. He packed some snacks and his own lunch in a small bag and left quietly, making sure his child stayed asleep, unaware of the journey he was taking. He did not want anyone else to worry or ask questions. It was his choice alone. The hospital looked different in the daytime. The lights were still bright, but the corridors were full of movement. There were more families, more noise, more hope and fear mixed together. He walked slowly, trying not to get lost in the crowd. His steps led him naturally toward the same wing where he had seen the girl the night before. When he arrived, she was still there, sitting in the same spot. Her eyes followed him as he approached, curious but cautious. She did not speak. He did not expect her to. He had learned that trust took time, especially with children who had been hurt or left alone. "Good morning," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and gentle. She blinked and nodded. "Morning," she whispered. He sat down on the chair next to her. This time, he brought some extra snacks and a small bottle of juice. He handed them to her carefully. "I thought you might be hungry," he said. Her hands trembled slightly as she took the food. She looked around as if she expected someone to stop her, to take it away. When no one did, she finally opened it and started eating small bites, careful and slow. The father watched her, feeling a strange mix of warmth and sadness. He remembered nights when he had worried about his own child's meals, about whether there would be enough to eat, whether the day had been kind to them. He could see that same worry and fragility in this girl, but it was deeper, older, and lonelier. After a few moments, he asked gently, "Do you like it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, almost whispering, like the words were new and hard to say. He smiled lightly. Good. There was silence for a while. The father did not rush to fill it. Sometimes just being there, just sharing the same space, was enough. He noticed how small movements could tell stories. The way she held her hands, the slight shift of her shoulders, the way she avoided eye contact, it all spoke volumes about the life she had lived and the loneliness she had endured. You know, he said finally, I have a child too. Around your age? She looked up, eyes widening a little. Really? She asked. Yes, he said, nodding. It's not always easy. Sometimes you feel like the world is too big and you are too small. She tilted her head, listening. She did not speak, but her eyes softened just a little. I know it can be scary here, he continued. Hospitals are strange places. They feel quiet sometimes, but really there is always something happening. People come and go, some happy, some sad. It's normal to feel small here. She looked down at her hands again. He could see the faint trembling. He reached out slowly and put a hand on hers, not touching too much, just enough to offer comfort. She flinched at first, but then let him stay. He did not speak. The warmth of his hand was meant to remind her that she was not invisible. Hours passed like this. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he just stayed quiet. They shared small snacks, a bottle of juice, and silent moments that spoke louder than words. He asked about her favorite colors, if she liked to draw or read. She answered slowly, shyly, but with interest growing in her eyes. He listened carefully, encouraging small smiles and small laughs whenever they happened. When a nurse came by to check on her, the father explained quietly, I'm just here to keep her company for a little while. The nurse nodded. That's kind of you, she said with a smile. She doesn't get many visitors. The father felt a tightness in his chest. He had expected kindness to come naturally, but he did not expect the recognition to feel so heavy. It was heavy in a good way, reminding him that small gestures could have real meaning. By late afternoon, he realized it was time to leave. He did not want her to feel abandoned again, but he also could not stay forever. I have to go now, he said softly. She looked at him with wide eyes. You're leaving? He nodded. Just for a little while. I'll come back tomorrow if I can. Her lips quivered slightly, but she nodded. Okay, he left, walking slowly down the hallway. Every step was heavier than the last. He thought about the small kindness he had offered and the faint change in her eyes. It was not much, but it was something. And sometimes something is all a person needs to start believing in hope again. When he returned home, he carried the quiet energy of the hospital with him. He had shared part of his day, part of his life, and he felt it had mattered. He knew tomorrow would bring another chance to help. Another chance to be the person who could offer comfort without judgment, without expectation. That night, as he sat in his small kitchen, he thought about the girl again. He could see her tiny figure in the chair, the way she hugged herself, the cautious way she ate. He thought about how fragile life could be, and yet how strong small acts of care were. It was a delicate balance, and it weighed heavily on him, but also gave him a strange sense of purpose. He realized that kindness was not always easy. It required effort, attention, and sometimes sacrifice. But he also knew that in a world that often moved too fast, ignoring the small voices left behind, even a little kindness could become something extraordinary. He could not predict what would happen next, but he knew one thing. He could not turn away. The next morning, the father woke up earlier than usual. His body ached. His mind was heavy, but he could not stop thinking about the girl in the hospital. He had made a promise to himself, even if it was quiet and unspoken, that he would check on her again. He could not explain why this mattered so much. Only that he felt a responsibility he could not ignore. He packed a small bag again. Some snacks, a bottle of juice, and a few little things he thought might bring her comfort. A soft blanket he had kept for emergencies, a small notebook and a pen. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. Just small things that could make a big difference when someone felt alone. The bus ride to the hospital was long and tiring. The streets were noisy, the morning sun bright, but he did not mind. His thoughts were only on the girl, her small hands, her quiet voice, and the way she had looked at him the day before. He wondered if she had eaten well the night before, if she had slept. He wondered if anyone else had visited her, or if she had spent another night alone. When he arrived at the hospital, the halls were already busy. Nurses walked quickly, pushing carts, checking charts, speaking softly but firmly to patients and families. The father walked slowly, letting the movement of the hospital flow around him without getting lost in it. He followed the memory of the hallway where he had first seen her. She was there, sitting in the same spot. But today, she looked weaker. Her shoulders were slumped, her face paler, and her eyes carried more weight. She did not notice him at first, lost in her own world staring at the floor. He felt a lump in his throat, a mix of concern and the deep need to do something more. "Good morning," he said softly. Careful not to startle her, she looked up. Her eyes still tired, but a small flicker of recognition appeared. "Morning," she whispered. He sat down beside her, careful to leave space. "I brought some things for you," he said, opening his bag. "Food, juice, and a little notebook if you like to draw or write." Her eyes widened, and she hesitated. "For me?" she asked, voice barely audible. "Yes," he said, smiling gently. "I thought you might like it." She took the juice slowly, like it was precious. She opened the notebook with delicate fingers, as if touching something fragile. The father watched her, feeling the weight of the moment. This was more than food or a notebook. This was attention, care, and recognition she had not received for a long time. For the next hour, they sat quietly together. She drew small pictures, careful lines of houses, trees, and people. Sometimes she looked up to show him her work, and he nodded, praised it, encouraged her. The smallest smile appeared on her face, a fragile but real one. He realized that encouragement, simple acknowledgement, could bring light into even the heaviest moments. A nurse came by to check her vitals. The father explained that he was just visiting to keep her company. The nurse nodded, a small smile on her face. "It's good for her," she said. "She doesn't get visitors often." The father felt a heaviness in his chest. He had expected the day to be ordinary, but seeing the reality of her life, her vulnerability, and the lack of attention from others was a stark reminder of how small gestures mattered so much. After the nurse left, the father decided to ask gently about her situation. "Do you have family who comes to see you?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No one comes," she said quietly. "I stay here." His heart ached. He did not know the full story, but the pain in her words was enough. "That must be very hard," he said. "It's not fair for anyone to feel alone like this." She looked at him then, her eyes full of questions, fear, and a need for trust. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. He hesitated, choosing words carefully. "Because everyone deserves to feel seen," he said, "and I can help, even in a small way. You're not invisible to me." Her lips quivered, and she turned her face toward the wall for a moment, trying to hide the emotion. The father reached out slowly, again putting a hand near hers, not forcing contact, but offering the presence of support. She did not pull away this time. She just let him be there. Hours passed with small talks, drawings, and moments of quiet. He shared little stories about his own child, the funny things that happened at home, the struggles of balancing work and care. She listened, sometimes laughing softly, sometimes nodding. It was the first time in a long while she had responded to someone without fear or hesitation, as the day moved toward evening. The father decided to learn more about her situation. He asked the nurse quietly about her treatment and care. The nurse explained that she had been in the hospital for weeks, sometimes months, depending on her condition. Treatments were difficult, sometimes painful, and her family had not been able to support her consistently. The father listened carefully. He learned that the girl's treatment was expensive, and there were many days when doctors had to make choices about the level of care she could receive. He felt a deep ache inside him. He had always struggled financially himself, but now he realized the true weight of what this girl was facing. He felt torn. He could not solve everything. He had limited money, limited time, and limited resources. Yet he could not leave her feeling alone or forgotten. His mind raced, trying to find ways to help without overstepping or creating false hope. He decided that day to commit himself, not just for a moment, but for as long as he could. He would return, bring small things, listen, and offer companionship. Even if he could not change everything, he could make her days lighter, more bearable, more human. When it was finally time to leave, the girl looked at him with a mixture of hope and fear. "You'll come back?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded firmly. "Yes, I'll come back. Tomorrow, and as often as I can." Looked down at her drawings, then back at him. "Thank you," she whispered. The father left slowly, carrying with him the weight of responsibility and the spark of purpose. He knew that what began as a simple act of kindness had now grown into something deeper. He could not yet see where it would lead, but he knew that the bond they were forming could be life-changing for both of them as he walked home. He thought about the small steps he could take next. Perhaps he could speak to some people he trusted, maybe gather a little help for her treatment, or even just learn more about her needs. Every idea felt fragile, but each was a way to make a difference. That night, he sat alone in his apartment, thinking about the girl drawing quietly in the hospital. Her small smile, the cautious trust in her eyes, and the quiet strength she showed despite everything, it haunted him in the best way. He realized that helping her would not be easy. It might cost him time, energy, and money. But he also realized that sometimes the smallest acts of courage and care could create ripples far beyond what anyone could see. He went to bed that night with a plan forming in his mind. Not a perfect plan, not one that would solve everything, but a plan to keep showing up, to be there, to offer small kindnesses that might become something big. He closed his eyes, thinking of her tiny hands and fragile smile, knowing that tomorrow would bring another chance to make a difference, and that the journey of care had only just begun. The next day, the father returned to the hospital earlier than usual. The memory of the girl's fragile smile and quiet trust from the day before stayed with him all night. He knew he could not turn away. Life had taught him that sometimes the smallest actions could grow into something far bigger than anyone imagined. And he hoped that his presence could be the start of something meaningful for her. When he arrived, the girl was sitting in her usual spot. She looked up as he approached, a faint flicker of recognition and hope in her eyes. She did not smile fully, but there was a difference from the first day. She seemed slightly less guarded, slightly more willing to accept that someone cared. "Good morning," he said gently. Keeping his voice calm and soft, she nodded. Whispering, "Morning," he sat down beside her, placing his small bag on the chair next to him. Inside were snacks, a small juice box, and a few more items he had thought might bring comfort: a colorful sticker book, a tiny puzzle, and a soft blanket. He handed them to her carefully, making sure she understood it was all for her. She looked at the items, unsure at first, then slowly accepted them. She opened the sticker book and began placing the stickers on the pages with careful hands. Each small smile that appeared on her face felt like a quiet victory to the father. He had seen so little joy in her eyes before, and this small change gave him hope. For a while they did not speak much. She was focused on the stickers and the puzzle, and he respected her need for quiet. He simply watched, offering small comments and encouragement when she looked at him. "That looks great," he said. "You're very careful with the stickers." Her lips twitched slightly, almost a smile. "Thanks," she whispered. The father knew that patience was key. Trust was fragile, and he did not want to rush it. He stayed with her through quiet moments, sharing the space without forcing conversation. Just being there, just giving attention, could sometimes heal more than words ever could. Later, he asked gently, "Do you want to tell me about the hospital?" She paused, then nodded slowly. "It's hard," she said softly. "Some days are okay, but most days feel long and empty." "I don't see anyone." He listened carefully, nodding. "I understand. It must be lonely." "Yes," she whispered. "Very lonely." The father felt a tight knot in his chest. He had seen loneliness before, in his own struggles and in his child's life. But this was different. The depth of her isolation, combined with her need to stay strong, was heartbreaking. He knew he could not solve everything, but he could be there to share the burden, even in a small way. He thought carefully before speaking. "I can't promise to fix everything, but I can be here for you," he said softly. "We can share some time together every day if you like. We can talk, draw, or just sit quietly. You don't have to be alone." Her eyes looked up at him, wide and cautious. "Really?" she asked. "Really?" he said. "I will come every day I can." Her small smile appeared, fragile but real. It was the first time he had seen her smile without hesitation. He knew it was a small step, but it was significant. It meant she trusted him enough to believe in kindness again. As the day went on, they shared more than just quiet moments. He learned about her favorite stories, the little things that made her happy, and even the fears she carried silently. She told him about the moments she missed her family, about the nights she cried quietly, and about the frustration of feeling invisible in a place where people were supposed to care. The father listened without judgment, offering comfort where he could. He shared small stories from his own life, showing her that struggles could exist alongside care and love. He talked about his child, the funny things that happened at home, and the times he had felt tired and overwhelmed but still found moments of hope. A nurse came by to check her vitals, and the father spoke quietly with her about the girl's situation. The nurse shared that the girl's treatment was ongoing but costly, and that her parents had been unable to visit regularly. The father listened carefully, understanding that there were limits to what he could provide. Yet feeling a strong need to help however he could, he left the hospital that evening with a quiet determination. He knew that kindness alone might not solve everything, but it could change the way someone felt about the world. He could bring hope where there had been none, and sometimes hope was more important than anything else. When he returned home, he thought about the small community around him that might be able to help. Perhaps he could speak quietly to coworkers, friends, or even the hospital staff to gather small acts of support. He knew that people were often willing to help if they knew there was a real need. And he understood that even a little help could make a significant difference in the girl's life. That night, he sat in his small living room, thinking about the girl's tiny hands arranging stickers, her careful focus, and the small smiles that had begun to appear. He realized that his presence had already started to change something in her, even if just a little. She was beginning to trust, to hope, and to feel less alone. And he knew that showing up every day, offering small kindnesses, could lead to something far greater than he could yet imagine. He closed his eyes and made a quiet promise to himself. He would continue to come, to help in whatever way he could, and to remind the girl that she was seen, valued, and cared for. Even if the world felt heavy and unfair, he would be there as a small but steady light in her life. And in that promise, found a sense of purpose and hope that carried him through the night. The next day, Father woke up feeling a quiet determination he had never felt before. He knew today was important, not just for him, but for the girl at the hospital. Her small smiles, her quiet trust, and the fragile hope he had begun to see had grown in his mind overnight. He understood that even though he was only one person, showing up consistently could change the course of her life. He packed his small bag with care. Snacks, juice, the sticker book, the puzzle, and a few more small items he had found that could bring her comfort. A soft blanket, some colored pencils, and a few sheets of paper he thought she might enjoy. Each item was small, but each carried the thought that someone cared enough to bring them. At the hospital, the girl was sitting in her usual spot. Her eyes lit up slightly when she saw him approaching, a sign that their bond had deepened. She did not need to speak. The recognition and quiet relief in her expression said everything. "Good morning," he said gently, smiling. She nodded softly. "Morning." They spent the morning together quietly. She worked on her drawings, carefully adding details and colors while he sat nearby, offering gentle encouragement. "That's beautiful," he said. "I love how you use the colors." She looked up briefly and smiled, just a little. Each small smile seemed to bring life back into her face, and the father felt warmth in his chest. This was progress, slow but real, and it reminded him why he had chosen to care. Later, a nurse came by, checking on the girl's condition and her treatment schedule. The father spoke quietly with the nurse, asking questions and trying to understand how he could help beyond just visiting. The nurse explained the challenges the girl faced, ongoing treatments that were difficult and expensive, days when support was minimal, and the emotional toll of feeling alone. The father listened carefully. He could not provide everything, but he realized he could connect others who might help. Perhaps friends, colleagues, or even hospital staff could contribute small acts of kindness. He thought quietly about how each small contribution could add up to something significant. After the nurse left, the father shared his ideas with the girl in a gentle and reassuring way. "I might be able to get a little help for you," he said softly. "Some people might be able to bring things or help with the costs for your treatment. Even small things can make a big difference." Her eyes widened. "Really?" she whispered. "Yes," he said. "Really? You are not alone in this." Her small smile returned, fragile but real. She picked up her pencil and continued drawing, more confidently than before. The father felt a quiet sense of pride and hope. This was not just about food, toys, or company. It was about showing her that someone believed in her, that someone saw her struggle and wanted to help. Over the next few days, father quietly reached out to a few trusted friends and colleagues. He explained the situation without exaggeration, simply sharing the facts and the need for small support. To his surprise, people responded. Some could offer small financial help, others could provide items for comfort, and a few volunteered to visit and spend time with the girl. Slowly, the circle of support began to grow. When the father returned to the hospital and shared these small acts of kindness with the girl, her eyes filled with wonder and gratitude. She had not expected anyone to care beyond this one person. The sudden realization that a few more people cared changed something inside her. She began to trust not just the father, but the possibility that the world could be gentle and supportive, even in small ways. Weeks passed, and the girl's condition began to improve. Her strength grew gradually, aided not only by her treatment, but by the emotional support and sense of community that had developed around her. She smiled more, spoke more, and even laughed quietly when the father shared stories from his own life. The hospital staff noticed the change. Commenting on her newfound confidence and the brightness returning to her eyes, the father continued his visits, showing up consistently and offering the same quiet care, the same patient listening, and the same small gestures that had begun this journey. Each visit reinforced the idea that kindness, when given without expectation, could become a powerful force. One day, the nurse approached the father with a soft smile. "You've made a real difference," she said quietly. "She's stronger because she feels supported. She knows she is not alone, and that has helped more than anything else." The father felt a lump in his throat. He had not expected recognition. He had only wanted to be there, to do something simple that mattered. Hearing that it had made such a difference touched him deeply. The girl's recovery continued, and one day, she was able to walk down the hallway with her head held higher. A small but powerful symbol of hope and resilience. The father walked beside her, holding her hand gently, smiling as he saw her confidence grow. The support from others, the consistent care, the small acts of kindness had created a ripple effect that changed her life. The miracle, as some called it, was not just in her recovery. It was in the connection, the trust, and the understanding that even small kindness could have a lasting impact. The father realized that his simple decision to care, to stay, and to offer comfort had led to something far greater than he had imagined. As he walked home that evening, he reflected on the journey. Life had been difficult, and he had struggled to provide for his own child. Yet by extending care and compassion to someone in need, he had created change. He understood that miracles were often born from small acts of courage, kindness, and presence. That night, he sat quietly in his home, thinking about the girl who had once sat alone in a hospital hallway. He thought about her first small smiles, her growing trust, and the circle of support that had formed around her. He realized that life, though sometimes harsh, could be changed by simple decisions, consistent care, and the courage to show kindness even when it seemed small. The father closed his eyes with a sense of peace and purpose. He had learned that being present, listening, and offering small acts of care could transform lives. The girl's recovery was a miracle. Yes, but the true miracle was the power of compassion, the ripple effect of small kindnesses, and the knowledge that even one person's care could change the world for someone else. The following weeks passed with a quiet rhythm of hope and care. The father made it a routine to visit the hospital every day he could, always arriving with small items, snacks, or little things he thought would make the girl's days brighter. Even though life outside the hospital was difficult work, bills, responsibilities, he carried the thought of her in his mind. And that thought gave him a kind of strength he hadn't expected. Each day, the girl grew stronger, not just in her health, but in her spirit. The father noticed that her laughter came more easily now, her voice carried more confidence, and her eyes reflected a sense of safety and trust that had been missing for so long. Each small change was like a sunrise, slowly warming the darkness that had been in her life. One morning, as the father walked through the hospital doors, he saw her sitting in a common area surrounded by a few other children. They were quietly coloring, drawing pictures, or simply talking in low voices. She looked up, saw him, and waved with a bright smile. He felt a surge of warmth, knowing that she had begun to feel part of something larger, a small community that cared. He approached her slowly, careful not to disrupt the peaceful scene. "Good morning," he said softly. "Good morning," she replied, her voice full of energy he had not heard in weeks. He sat beside her, handing her a small snack and a bottle of juice as usual. She accepted them eagerly but politely, already confident enough to offer a piece to another child nearby. The father watched quietly, marveling at the ripple effect of kindness he had started. Her actions inspired others around her to care in small ways, sharing snacks, smiles, and conversation. After a while, the nurse who had first told him about the girl approached him. "She's different now," she said softly. "Her attitude, her spirits changed completely, and it's because she knows someone cares. You've made a difference that no medication could have done alone." The father nodded, a lump forming in his throat. He had not realized the full impact of his presence, only that he wanted to help. Hearing that his care had transformed her experience in the hospital made him feel both humble and proud. He understood, in that moment, how small acts could grow into miracles over time. Over the next few days, the girl's improvement continued steadily. Her treatments became easier because she was no longer frightened or lonely. She asked questions about the world outside, curious about life beyond the hospital walls. The father shared stories about his child, about simple joys and small adventures they had together. Her laughter became a constant background sound, weaving through the sterile hospital halls like music. Seeing her curiosity and confidence grow inspired the father to do more. He reached out to the hospital staff and some friends quietly, explaining that she could benefit from small contributions, books, drawing supplies, and little comforts that would make her days brighter. To his relief, people responded. Slowly, a small network of support formed around the girl. Every small act, donations, visits, or a kind word helped her regain strength, both physically and emotionally. One evening, after a long day of treatment, the girl and the father sat together in her room. She leaned slightly toward him, her eyes serious. "You know," she said softly, "I didn't think anyone would ever care about me like this." The father smiled gently. "I care," he said simply, "and I will keep caring." Even small gestures can change a lot. Her lips quivered, and she hugged him tightly for the first time. It was a pure, heartfelt moment that carried all the gratitude, relief, and trust she had kept inside for so long. The father felt a deep warmth in his chest, knowing that his presence, patience, and kindness had helped her feel safe again. Days turned into weeks, and soon the hospital staff began to notice remarkable changes in the girl. She engaged with the nurses, participated in group activities, and even encouraged other children to join. Her spirit was vibrant, and her health continued to improve. The father was careful not to take all the credit, understanding that recovery was a combination of medical treatment, emotional support, and the small but consistent care he had provided. One afternoon, as they walked down the hospital hallway together, the girl turned to him and said, "I think I can go home soon. I feel ready." The father felt a rush of emotion. He had hoped for this moment, but seeing her say it aloud so confidently made it real. "I'm so proud of you," he said softly. "You've been so brave." Her smile shone brightly. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said. He shook his head gently. "You did this yourself. I only helped you see that someone cares." The nurse who had been guiding her treatment approached, smiling warmly. "It's amazing what care and kindness can do," she said. "You've both taught us something important. The girl's progress has been remarkable, and it's all because she felt supported and loved." That evening, the father walked home, reflecting on the journey. He had started with a simple a bottle of water, a sandwich, and a few kind words. That small gesture had grown into a ripple of hope, trust, and community that changed the girl's life. She was not just recovering physically. She was finding her spirit, her confidence, and her belief in the goodness of people. When he arrived home, his own child greeted him with a tired but happy smile. He hugged them tightly, realizing that the lessons of care, patience, and kindness he had practiced in the hospital also applied to his own life. Being present, listening, and offering compassion could change the world. Even in the smallest ways, the father understood that miracles often begin quietly, in unnoticed moments. A simple act, repeated consistently and offered with a genuine heart, could ripple outward, touching more lives than anyone could see. The girl's recovery, her newfound confidence, and the small community of support around her were proof that compassion could create real, life-changing miracles. As he settled down for the night, the father thought about the journey ahead. Life would continue with its challenges, responsibilities, and struggles, but he had learned the power of presence, care, and small acts of kindness. He knew that showing up day after day and offering genuine support could change the course of someone's life. And in that knowledge, he found peace, hope, and purpose, knowing that one simple choice could indeed lead to a miracle.